This ESPN podcast is brought to you by Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance. Visit geico.com.
The BS Report is a free-flowing conversation that occasionally touches on mature subjects.
First of all,
this is the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
It might be cool, I don't know. And if it's not, I don't care.
The BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Bill Simmons works for ESPN. He's also named the Sports Guy, and he writes a comical sports column. He must be a popular dude.
The BS Report.
It's got a real dirty sound, like a rusty steak knife cutting through a well-aged steak.
Now.
Here's Bill Simmons.
Welcome to the BS Report, Monday morning here in Southern California. Big sports day, big bombshell today. We'd been waiting for it. We knew it was going to happen probably in 2013. It happened. Jason Collins, the first professional athlete active to also come out. And we have talked about this before on the podcast with Wesley Morris from Grantland, our Pulitzer Prize winning movie critic, who actually just wrote about Brittany Griner last week on Grantland. And Wesley, we knew this podcast was coming in 2013. We just didn't know when.
We did not know when, and it's here now. And I don't know. I mean, first of all, there's a couple things. We should say that Jason Collins did this by writing a first-person story in Sports Illustrated with Franz Litz, who and it just is one of the most delightful things you're ever going to read. There's no heaviness, nothing depressing about it, except that like he had to do it as a 34-year-old man. But that's not depressing. That's actually it's just one of the sad facts of the way things work here with gay anybody, especially black men, and even more especially athletes. It just makes me happy. It's just the story is happy. He wasn't dragged out of the closet. He didn't get caught. As he says in the piece, I wanted to come out on my terms, not TMZ's. It's just I'm very happy. There's a lot of I have a lot of mixed feelings about the environment in which this is happening, but I'm really happy for Jason Collins, and I imagine you are too.
I am too, but tell me about the environment. Explain that.
He's not the thing about this phenomenon for me is that I hate that it monopolizes the conversation about being gay. Do you know what I mean? Jason Collins is not the first person in the history of homosexuality to say, "Hey, I'm gay."
Yeah.
He is the first professional athlete who's still playing the sport who's not a woman to do this. I mean, there's just so many. It's a big deal, and yet it's not or shouldn't be allowed to be made a bigger deal than it actually is. There are millions of people who make this choice every day who don't have the fame he has, the money he has, the sort of goodwill from other people that Jason Collins has. There's a lot of, this is sort of a separate issue from Jason Collins, the individual, more like what Jason Collins is going to spend the rest of the year and perhaps his career and perhaps his life representing, which is this sort of heroic, stand taker who decided to do something that no one else had done before. People do this all the time.
Right.
And I think that, if his doing this can make other athletes, professional, amateur, and otherwise, more comfortable in doing it themselves, then great. But he's not the first athlete to announce himself as gay, and he won't be the last. I think that his prominence as an active professional basketball player is a big deal, and he is, very well liked and respected, and people he's just as you said to me, it couldn't be a better person to do this. And the brilliance of that piece is that it really, in really enthusiastic language. And it's hard to write like that. I can say as a writer who writes about himself every once in a while, or who avoids writing about himself, it's hard to do that in a way that doesn't make people roll their eyes. That story just made me smile because it was like, that's what it's like for people who come out of the closet. Like,
right.
I mean, it's a weight that you feel. The greatness of that piece is that you can feel the weight being lifted off of him. And it makes you light. It gives you a sense of lightness. But there are two separate things happening. And I think the thing that's important to keep in mind as we go through all this, whatever we're going to go through, is that, I mean, I just want to reemphasize it. It's just not, it's a big deal, and yet it's not a big deal. And I hope that he can find, and I hope the media will find a way to strike that balance. They won't care. But I mean, it's important for him and the people around him and just other gay people of any prominence to just remember that this is normal.
Yep. Well, but at the same time, we're talking about baby steps here, and every step matters. You know, when Rick Welts came out, I think last year, and we did the BS report and we talked to him, and that was a big deal in its own way. He was the first openly gay sports executive and somebody who had real power in the NBA and was universally beloved and was in his own way the perfect person to become the first openly gay sports executive. Collins, we knew somebody had to do this, and I personally was getting tired of the speculation and even like stuff 2 weeks ago with the Kerry Rhodes photos and then the 5 football players who were allegedly coming out. And, you know, it was just waiting for just somebody to come out, because as soon as it happened, we didn't have to read about it anymore, and it would be less of a big deal the next time the next one came out, and eventually it just wouldn't be a big deal at all. So I'm glad that the Collins thing happened for that respect, because now it's progress. It's going to move things along and just eventually get us to the point where nobody cares when this happens.
Yes.
But he, in particular, as I emailed you today, you almost couldn't have picked a better guy. Somebody who's willing to talk about it, articulate not just how he did it in the first piece here, but 3 months from now and a year from now and 2 years from now. And I think that's important too. And he's still playing. And I think that's a big thing. You know, I think it's just not the same weight if it's somebody who retired and then does it. This is a guy who's probably going to be in the NBA next year. And this is also a guy who's been in some big games. I always feel bad when I read these pieces because, as you said, you can feel the weight being lifted, but at the same time, you think about all those years where the weight was there, you know, and I wonder, like, what do you think this was too late, too early, or just about right for the first athlete to come out?
You mean for him or for this larger cultural narrative?
Just for somebody to be the first guy, because it had to happen. Do you wish it had happened 2 years ago, last year, right now? Do you think it should have been later?
I don't know. I don't think there's really a right time to do it. I mean, I just, like you said, someone had to do it. I think the way he did it, you know, the way this piece is structured, it's so brilliant, because what he does, what he and friends do, is he sets up the three degrees of Jason Collins rule, right? Yeah. Like, everybody in the NBA knows somebody who's played with me if you haven't played with me yourself. And did I seem weird to you? Was there anything untoward that I did? Like, I'm a totally normal guy. This is being gay in America. Like, it could be me. It could be like Andre Leon Talley. But, you know, we're all in the same boat. And I just happen to be a guy who plays in the NBA. I think there's not a wrong time to do it. I think that what will probably happen is some other guys will have a moment to examine themselves and think about whether it's something they want to do. I also think that it's important to understand there's more than one way to come out of the closet. There's this way where you really sort of you get everybody to turn their heads. And you do it the Brittany Griner way, which is to not really come out at all, because you were never really it. I think the Jason Collins story is a little more relatable because there's a little bit of drama to it. There's a little more, you know, it's a very common thing among a lot of men and women where you like, you know, he compared himself to something in the oven, and some things just take a little bit longer to be done. And he says he took 34 years to not know he was gay, maybe, but just to accept it in a way that he can make it public.
And is it weird that I'm actually glad that that's the point of his career and that's his age, like, because you're a veteran, you've been through a lot of wars, you've played on different teams with different guys, you're able to put everything in the proper perspective. It's something he was obviously considering for a while.
Mm-hmm.
I value his perspective on the whole thing more than if it was some 23-year-old who was,
sure.
You know what I mean? I just feel like he's seen more things.
Yeah, he's seen more things. Middle-aged guys who come out are the, like, you know, they fall into, I mean, there are more than two categories, but two very interesting categories for me are the guys who come out and go crazy and go clubbing all the time and like, I'm out. And,
yeah.
You know, but they're like mentally or sexually or socially 19 years old, and all they want to do is go out and party and you know, see what this life is like. And then there are 34-year-old guys who come out and they're like, I have a responsibility as a person who's been in for so long to get caught up politically, to do all the work that, you know, my college classmate, you know, Congressman Joe Kennedy is doing. And, you know, all of these activists who have activized and made it a lot easier for me to even be able to do what I'm doing right now. You know, I mean, as unthinkable as it was as unthinkable as it has been the last couple of months and years, it was super duper amazingly unthinkable 20 years ago. And that, you know, the easing of the culture didn't just happen by accident. Like, politics and gay people and their allies coming together and fostering a cultural environment and political environment for a Jason Collins to actually happen, or a Brittany Griner to happen in the way that, you know, she made her homosexuality an issue, and for Billie Jean King and Martina Navratilova, all of these people in these different ways of being gay in sports and in the sports world, that didn't happen just by accident. And I think a person like Jason Collins, who comes out as a full-grown man, feels a sort of burden and responsibility to uphold, you know, and continue all the work that gay men and women have done before him. And that to me is the most amazing thing about what he's doing. It's not like, hey, I'm gay, I just want to play sports, leave me alone. It's, hey, I'm gay, I'm going to continue to play sports, and I'm going to play sports as a out gay black man, and I'm going to march in the gay pride parade, and I'm going to have me a family. And, you know, yeah.
Right. Well,
and I think, like, he's just hitting all the rungs of he's just doing everything right, and not in a way that seems to me at all calculated. It's just totally genuine.
Well, there's a couple of fascinating revelations. I thought SI, congratulations to them, because they did this the way they rolled it out with like 5 different pieces and the story behind the story, and his agent had something, and then they wrote about the actual doing the interview with him and how they did it that way. And then they had a piece in his own words from his twin brother. And in that piece, I was absolutely shocked to learn that the twin brother had no idea until maybe it was last year when Jason told him. I was stunned by that, because twin brothers and how close they were and the whole thing. And it seems like Jason had kept this very, very close to the vest for a long time. So I was surprised by that. And then when he was wearing number 98, I didn't realize that he was doing that for a specific reason.
Yeah, no, that's very touching too.
Yeah, but it's weird that nobody asked him why he was wearing 98, or maybe they did. And maybe it just kind of fell through the cracks, but he did.
I wonder if he had. I mean, I wasn't aware that anybody asked him, because I feel like I would have known what the answer was.
Right.
So, I mean, I wonder what he would have said had he directly been asked.
Right. Well, I just assumed he was wearing 98 because there was some. I don't know. I guess I didn't really think about it. I was like, wow, that's weird. He's wearing number 98, but never really made the connection.
So Bill, where do we go from here? Like,
I was going to ask you. You're supposed to know. I don't know. Here's what I think happens.
Well,
Oh,
you
I'll
tell
go
me, you
first,
tell
then
me.
you go because you'll have a better handle on it than me. I just think it's going to open the door for more people to come out because they're going to see the reception that he got. And other than some a-holes on internet message boards, and I'm sure two athletes will tweet something stupid or have some dumb quote and they'll be revealed as meatheads. But other than that, I really don't think there's gonna be a backlash or anything like that. I think if anything, he's gonna be lauded as somebody that has a chance to always be remembered here as the first guy. And then that's going to open the door for others, and it's just going to keep going and going, and eventually nobody's going to care when this happens.
I do think that it will give people who've said stupid things in the past an opportunity to put those things behind them and praise Jason Collins for what he's doing too. I think
like Kobe Bryant did today. Kobe did that today.
Yeah, I mean, well, Kobe has sort of been on high alert.
Right.
He's gone out of his way to sort of be like, that's the old me. And, I think spiritually he has turned a corner in that regard.
We hope so.
Yeah, well, okay, we hope so. And I also, there is still a question mark about this, though, Bill, and that is what happens when this guy gets picked up next year and has to go out and play basketball, and not wherever he gets picked up, we don't know, but where from city to city, what's the reaction going to be? I imagine a lot of places will give him some kind of ovation, the first time he gets there, and then it'll seem normal. But you just wonder. I mean, I've been to sporting events where people have said some crazy stuff from the stands to people who, weren't gay at all.
This is a great point because, sports heckling. People get beer muscles from the stands. They yell. Yeah. They yell stuff. They cross lines.
They will say anything. And what I'm predicting, and this is a horrible thing to predict, but I do see another, Detroit situation. I can see it happening where his team. Am I being crazy?
I would think. I think somebody would say something, and I think everybody in the section would immediately turn on the person. If that's how it plays out. But
what if this guy's beer muscles are on steroids? He brought some friends. Do you know what I mean? I don't want that to happen, obviously, but I wonder, I think that this season will be a real test of the fans' mettle, of the players' mettle, of the ownership's mettle, of the venue owners and employees. I know it's a crazy thing to extrapolate about, but it is, and it will be something to watch for. Like how the infrastructure embraces Jason Collins. It's one thing for me to sit here and be like, yeah, that's great, or for you to sit here and do the same thing, but it'll be a real test of how far we've all come and how far the industry has come to let this guy go out there and play his basketball.
I'm a bad person 10 years ago, I was sitting, it was 11 years ago, the 2002 Eastern Conference Finals, Celtics Nets. In my opinion, one of the darker Boston sports moments. Jason Kidd's playing, they're chanting wife beater at him. Yep. I'm sitting in a section that has two guys who are wearing homemade kid jerseys that say wife beater with his number, and his wife is sitting in that section. So for me, that's always about as low as it can go, just in general. I was so disappointed that day. And people are assholes, and they're always going to be a segment of the population where people are assholes, and that's just the way it is. I do feel like in this case, by the time he plays a game, there's going to be more professional athletes who have come out by that point. And I don't think he's going to be alone on an island. And I really do think that the culture of being at a game and how much they've changed it and made it more family oriented, especially after the Artest melee, which they changed just a variety of things about the experience of going to a game. I'm hoping he's okay, but maybe I'm naive.
No, I don't think it's naive at all. I would be shocked if it happened. I'm just saying, I think it'll be an interesting thing. It'll be an interesting thing to watch out for. I like to think that we've all come far enough in this conversation about gay people being married, gay people, having equal rights, and, the Supreme Court taking up this issue. I would say too soon, but whatever. I mean, we'll see what happens in June. It's going to be an interesting summer and fall for all of this stuff. And I think, do you have any sense of where he's going to go?
No, but I do think, this is an issue because he's played in the league for 12 years and he was kind of hanging on. The Celtics picked him up during the season. He ended up being in the Jordan Crawford trade just because it was a salary luxury tax thing. What's interesting is when they traded him, and he was at the tail end of his career, and just offensively, he's basically useless. He's a guy who rebounds and sets picks, and he's a good interior defender. But when they traded him, Doc Rivers made a point of saying, this is one of the best guys I've ever coached, and we're really going to miss him in the locker room. Now, what's interesting is, as far as I could tell from the Celtics people I've talked to, that nobody had any idea about what was going on with him personally. They loved him. They thought he was like the classic, like, veteran leader type guy. And for that reason, I think he'll play for a couple more years because teams, like, look at Juwan Howard. Juwan Howard's 40. He can't even move anymore. He's still in the Heat. Teams love having those veteran guys. And so I think he'll continue to play. And what'll be interesting is, what if nobody picks him up? And that is what I think could be a story, because I do feel like he had 1 or 2 years left possibly. And if nobody picks him up, that could be really bad for the league. And if anything, I predict that some team will pick him up because it's too important for Stern. Stern has been way ahead of these issues. And, what's interesting is, I think 2 other things happened this season that were in their own way just as important as what happened with Jason Collins and what's going to happen with Jason Collins. One was Kenneth Faried coming out about having being basically raised by 2 moms. And that was a story that actually didn't get enough play. I thought that whole thing was fascinating. I thought he handled it great. And just everything he said about it, I loved, and I thought was really interesting. I have a family member who's married to another woman and has 2 sons, and I know some of the struggles that they go through. And, it's a real thing. You have 2 moms and you're 8 years old and you're getting dropped off at school and some kid says something and, it can almost be more harmful than anything that either of the moms went through. So you got that. And then the next one was, now I'm blanking. What was the other thing that came out this year with sports?
Was it a player or is it like a...
No.
I forgot about the Kenneth Faried thing. It didn't get enough play, but
Oh, yeah, I remembered. Magic, the way he handled the thing with his son.
Oh, with his son? Yeah, sure.
TMZ, I guess it was an outing, but not really. It was...
look.
It was a video, and it was what it was. But Magic owned it and was just like, yeah, my son's gay, and gave interviews about it. And, as somebody that, I'm proud to call that guy a friend, I thought he handled that magnificently as a dad.
He also didn't have a choice because...
True.
Not that he wanted to do something else, but it would have been more shocking to me if he'd been like, I don't want to talk about that.
Right.
I just think, Magic has been such a pioneer on social issues that have sort of been beyond his control for so long that I feel like this was a no-brainer for him because his son is who his son is. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, it wasn't like, I thought that was amazing. It's funny. I think that Magic's son and Warren Beatty and Annette Benning's transgender daughter are 2 really interesting cases of how being famous sort of puts a lot of pressure on a person to take a stand or have an opinion about something. And I just think that both the Beatty Dennings and Magic Johnson haven't handled the media's interest in their children really, really well. The Beatty Denning is kind of by not handling, by just letting their son speak for himself. And, Magic sort of like coming out in front of this story.
When did you come out? How old were you?
I don't know. I mean, it's a weird thing. It's kind of like, I don't know if I was ever, I don't know if I was ever, I mean, out is the wrong word. It's just like, when do you start having conversations about, who you're bringing to things?
Got it.
It wasn't like, there was no first person story or anything. It was like, you guys know that I will not be bringing a woman to this event if I bring anybody.
Right.
It's just not that's just not, I also think that, the funny thing for a lot of people is that it's not a surprise. You know what I mean? Like, for some people, they might be legitimately shocked. Like, it's Jason Collins says that his brother was shocked, but his aunt, the judge, she's like, well, what took you so long? Right. Everybody's family, I come from a family of, throw a rock, you're going to hit a homosexual. And I feel like there are a lot of families where that's, it's just some genes produce a lot of gay people.
Yeah.
My family, happens to be a homosexual factory. And so it just becomes a normal thing in a lot of ways. And I think that at some point you just have to figure out when it's normal for you to do something. And I think that it's just having hormones at all, whether they are directed to the same sex or the opposite sex, it's just a hard thing to negotiate at all. And I think some kids have an easier time with that than others, regardless of their orientation. I think the difference now between when I was a kid and when, my niece, for instance, who is 15 and gay, it's just sort of the ground is much more fertile for being who you are if who you are is not what we used to think of as normal. There's no normal anymore.
Well,
everybody
also not hating yourself for who you are, which is a whole other
right.
conversation and something that, is still there. But I don't think you think about what it was like 20 years ago. And just, I know from family experience, like if this was happening in the late 80s, early 90s, it was a much different mindset. It took a much different level of courage, I think.
Yeah.
And, you felt like if you were coming out at that point, you felt like people were going to turn their backs on you. That still exists, right? A little bit. Yeah. Or you didn't know. You didn't know, like, if I tell this person this anecdote about myself, will they ever talk to me again? And now I feel like, maybe that exists a little bit. I don't think nearly as much. And to me, this is why the Jason Collins thing was so important and the Rick Welch thing was so important, because sports is the toy store for America, and that's where we have our heroes and our villains, and that's where we have so much invested in these guys that we barely know. And the more that toy store reflects what life is like, I think the better off we are.
Yeah.
And that's why this is good. And the other thing that's interesting to me, people always said it would never happen. It wouldn't be an NBA player because of the African Americans community's, I don't know the right word, attitude toward the gay community and their, real biases. And there's that whole down low side of the community and everything. And I thought it was interesting that an NBA player was the first one. This is something that people told us they wouldn't be the first league where this happened, and it turned out it was.
I always knew it was going to be the NBA.
Really?
Because, for one thing, I think that the rap that black people get for quote, not liking gay people is just, I don't think, we're just not cool with a label.
Right.
Like, it's not, every black person knows a gay person. Every black person is related to a gay person. I know we're going to get a lot of calls like, I don't know no black people. I don't know no gay people. No gay people in my family. I just think you need to pick that rock up with both hands, my friend. Because that person is under there. Trust me. I just think that the discomfort is when I think it's partly political. I think the equation of the gay rights movement and the black, the black civil rights movement. I think when people make that equation, I think it makes a lot of black people uncomfortable because, in the eyes of a lot of people, for one thing, it becomes a moral issue, much more than homosexuality becomes much more of a moral issue than race and discrimination against non-white people. And I think that the other thing is just the idea that this thing has a name and, all the things that implies. And, if you're really religious, it's a problem because, God doesn't like gay people, even though I don't know what that means. And I think it's important, just parenthetically, that Jason Collins is sort of also emphasizing his Christianity and that he's still a practicing Christian. I just think that gay people, we are a very forgiving people. We are a very tolerant people. We never officially disowned OJ.
That's a great point.
We tried, but we couldn't let him go. And I just think we're loving people, and we say stuff we don't really mean. We might say things out of ignorance, but at the end of the day, we can't totally disown you because, we are you and you are us. And I think it had to be the NBA because it just is, the NBA is sort of a family place, and the dysfunction in the NBA is the same dysfunction in your house. Even down to the relationship people had with David Stern. Do you know what I mean? It's like, that dynamic is real.
You know what? That's an awesome point. I wish I had thought of that point. You're right. The NBA is like a weird, wacky, dysfunctional family, and David Stern's like the old dad. And he's kind of like, I disagree with some of the stuff he does, but fundamentally, for instance, I knew he would stick up for Collins today. And not to call out the other commissioners, but I feel like if Roger Goodell, who I'm still trying to get a feel for, and I think he's a big hypocrite in a lot of ways, like if I feel like he would have gone over the top if it was a gay NFL player with his support. Stern, the statement they released was exactly what I knew Stern and Silver would say. And I guarantee the thing about the NBA is when something like this is going to happen, they know they can reach out to the commissioner. I mean, this goes down to every big crisis that they've had, or every big story, or every big this is going to come out. ... They've established a league that, if you want to talk about the positives of the Stern era, I think this is one of the best things. He's established this open door kind of policy to, if you have a problem or if you're working through something or whatever you're going through, we're here and we'll help you. Which I think is pretty cool. And especially like, a little bit different, but everything Magic went through when he found out he had HIV in 91. I thought that was one of Stern's finest moments, the way he handled everything with that. And I think this will be another one of his finest moments, how he handles this Jason Collins thing. What's your worst fear for the next 2 weeks?
I think that it's directly related to the great thing about, it having to be the NBA, which is that it will sort of like the demonization of what seems normal. You know what I mean? Like what do we think normal is? I think, Jason Collins is the kind of guy my mom wished that I could bring home.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like he's a guy that it's funny when people don't know you're gay and they think you're like a nice guy and they think you're cute and, they always have a daughter. Do you know what I mean? They always have a daughter for you to I have a daughter for you. You should come meet my daughter. And then you have to tell them that's really sweet, ma'am, but do you have a son? Nobody ever offers up a son. I feel like for Jason Collins, people would definitely be finding some sons to be here, take him.
That's a good.
And I think that, like, I don't know if I think I sort of misanswered your question. I think that maybe I don't think there's really going to be a demonization. I think there might be, like, the opposite of that, where, like, you know, your nervousness about what Goodell's would do if this happened to him first, like where he, you know how he gives those really, like, aggressive hugs where there's, like, too much flesh on your face.
He's always
like,
over the top. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
It's just
whatever he
much,
does
like,
is over the top.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I think there could be like a front lash, you know, like there's just a lot of people just going out of their way to like come over for dinner, Jason Collins. Like, hey, we're having a Seder this weekend, Jason Collins. Like, you know, come to everything. Then just be this great, wonderful guy and your openly gay self. You know, like he's just gonna be this like stuffed animal for people's. I mean, I don't know if you can have straight guilt, but I think he's such a, like, good guy that he could tap into a kind of, like, straight guilt. Like, like the same thing that, like, white liberals feel for black people, there could be straight people who feel for him. And that would get on my nerves.
Or with the Cosby Show, what purpose that served in the mid-'80s for white people.
Right,
exactly. Like, I'm not racist. I watched the Cosby Show.
Yeah, I don't hate gay people. I want Jason Collins to come over and talk to my kid.
You know, you made a great point, though. The NBA's dysfunctional family, that kind of, you know, they have all these different quote-unquote characters in the league, right? And you have, like, the Chris Anderson character. You have the J.R. Smith character. You have, like, Kobe Bryant. You have all these different types of people that are all kinds of these manifestations of people we know in our life. Like Kobe Bryant is the incredibly self-absorbed, overmotivated guy who's just will do anything to be the best. Like we know somebody like that, and it just goes on down the line. And it makes sense that the NBA would be the first league that now has the first openly gay athlete who's just cool with it, and he's articulate about it and doesn't think it's a big deal.
Right. There's two other things that I think we should maybe think about too. And I think that, like, the sort of talk about the fertile groundwork that made something like, I mean, not that made this possible. I mean, he probably would have done it anyway. But I mean, there are two cultural things that happened around this in the sports world. The first of which is, I mean, not to give Kobe a lot of credit for anything, but I mean, I think that, like, the use of, like, calling people faggot all the time in the league, like the sort of the growing backlash against that term being used as gratuitously and kind of as poignantly as it was, created it helped create that campaign, right? It gets better campaign.
You're right. Like, it ultimately was a good thing in a weird way.
Right. It was. I wasn't crazy about it because I felt like they were shoving it down our throats. But I mean, Dan Savage, you know, is a wonderful human being, and I think having the NBA have some relationship with him, and yeah, I think it was a really interesting thing where, like, what it was saying was the opposite of what I was saying before about, like, you know, guilty straight people. It was the gay community saying to the NBA, look, we know you guys aren't all a bunch of homophobic haters, and, you know, we need you to help tell the kids that you're, like, confusing with this, like, this slurring BS, that it's okay. So shut up and do this and let people know. And I think that was really important to, like, even for the players who thought it was stupid and didn't want to do it and didn't participate, just to have a league say, you know, we're sorry, gay people, you know, look how sorry we are. And I mean, and also it's Dan Savage. He's not a Muppet. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's a very pointed, very graphic, very specific political gay person. And I think that, you know, having him and the league sort of, you know each other was really interesting. And then it's just the NHL, where you don't have any openly gay players, but you definitely feel like you have a culture where if somebody did come out, it just wouldn't be a big deal at all.
Because Canadians are mellow and cool.
Well, I just think they've just, I mean, there's partly that. I also just think it's a place where, I mean, in a way, in the same way that the NBA is kind of like a big gay family, I think the NHL is a big working class family. And I think that, I just think that, a lot of middle and lower middle class people also have like, gay Uncle Mike and, gay Aunt Rochelle. It's just like, it's just like you don't have the luxury of throwing stones at people because one of the stones is going to hit you or somebody you love. So
hockey
you just
players are the best. I'm all in, and hockey players are the greatest. They're the nicest, most humble people out of all the sports. And yeah, I totally agree. Doc Rivers actually, they talked to him. As we were talking, there was a story about it, and he said, so one of the best guys who'd ever been around the NBA. He's terrific. Losing him was hard for me. I just thought he was such a great teammate, such a great guy in the locker room, an honest teammate, worked hard, accepted his role. Goes on and on, just gushes about him, says he's happy for him, says it's funny. In some ways, I'm happy for Jason. I can't imagine trying to be something and then trying to be something else. I'm happy for him. Be interesting to see if he comes back next year because I do think they miss him. I think they miss his leadership, but maybe is it possible that this just goes, there's a 2-day, everybody's saying they're happy for him, and then this just goes away?
Well, I mean, it only goes away if he goes away, right? I mean, like, I'm sure he doesn't want to spend, he also wants to play basketball. And, his timing on this was great because he can spend 2 months just being like, hey, media, I'm gay. And then, in June or July, whatever, he can just go back to trying to get on a team. And, I think the timing is really good. And I don't think the story dies as long as he keeps it alive. And I think, like you said, it's not just about him. I think it's the thing that he makes okay for people. And I guess the question you're really asking is is anybody else really going to come out between now and the time the season starts?
I would say yes.
I would say yes, too. And I also think, I mean, again, not to keep harping on this, but I just think that, the Brittany Griner example is a really useful one because there are guys out there playing in professional sports who aren't in the closet. They're just not out.
Yeah.
And I think that there'll be an interview where just some guy, somebody, and also it'll be somebody who it'll be somebody maybe even more, famous and prominent a player than Jason Collins. It'll be like a real superstar. And it's just statistically, it's just the odds, the numbers just don't bear out for all these, to have no people. And I think everybody in every league knows somebody who is, who's playing, and they're already playing alongside these guys. And it's just up to the players to reveal this if they feel like they need to. And I mean, this issue really is an interesting one for me because, at the end of the day, what you're really thinking about is not whether or not the story lives or dies. It's just actually what you're thinking about is how much of a story it even is in the first place. Do you know what I mean? At the end of the day, he's just some dude who plays basketball who's gay. And
but here's why it is a story, though, because you have all these people out there, especially people in that, that 15 to 19 age range who feel like there's something wrong with them. And they're looking around for role models or anybody and a reason to try to kind of be who they are. And, now this happens and that's somebody they can look to,
Right.
And I think that's why this is a big story. I don't think in the case there's going to be some dumb subplots that I'm sure people write about. Well, what's this going to be like in the locker room? That stuff to me is, and I hope I hope that it doesn't even become a story. But for me, it's the role model part that I think is important. Hey, if let's say I got him on a podcast this week, what one question would you want me to ask him?
Oh, God. I mean, there's so many questions. I mean,
give me
there's so
3.
many questions. I think my question is, was there never a conversation that he was having with other guys in the league about like other gay guys in the league. And, you know, did he, I mean, I don't know. I know that I always have did he have no gaydar? Like, I wonder what his gaydar is like,
Right.
you know, for other guys in the league. You know, I know what it's like to be in a charged environment where, like, you know, it just stuff happens. And I just wonder if, like, he was put in a compromising position because of just the way human nature is and the way human attraction is. And it's not that it's not that a straight guy is not safe in the locker room because gay guys are in the locker room. Like, I go to a gym all the time and, you know, like, everybody knows what happens in the gym. Like, there's some gay guys in the gym. I'm a guy in a gym and we're all in there together. And but the thing that the sort of energy around how that is for a guy who is in a minority, and, you know, what makes you different from other people is how you respond to other people, is an interesting question. And, like, whether that was something that he was able to talk to somebody in the NBA about who was also sort of in the NBA. And then, you know, I'd like to know what he plans, what he can do to, like, brace himself for, like, what we were talking about before with the infrastructure of the sport, and how that will prepare, how that will, like, sort of embrace and accept him, and what it's going to do when he starts playing again. And if he, you know, does he see a therapist for that?
Yeah.
Like, is there somebody he can talk to like, to gird him for what's going to happen? Even if it's wonderful and great, and, like, every time it's still not something he's going to be used to, you know? I mean, he's a journeyman, right? Like, I feel like he is somebody who is not, he's been below the radar from the public standpoint, and that is officially over. He's going to get picked up by a team, and he's going to be like the same way Jeremy Lin was. He's going to be a guy who is, like, his entire thing is going to be recast in the eyes of the people coming to watch him play.
Yeah.
And is he ready for that? Is he ready to, like, be at his best, you know, professionally, with the eyes, with these new set of eyes on him in a totally different way?
It would make for one of the most fascinating documentaries I can imagine. I mean, I'm sure he's probably not going to do anything like that, but I think what his
he
next
certainly
year,
could. I mean, let
could
him follow this season. Follow him.
What his next year is going to be like, is going to be fascinating. It just is. But, you know, we're saying that now. By the time we get to November, when the season starts, there might be 7 other openly gay professional athletes out there, or 10.
Well,
who knows?
One can only hope. I just also want to say, like, before, when I was saying that this wasn't a story, it wasn't so much that I'm saying it's not a story.
No,
it's
I know
more
what you
that,
meant.
like, you know, I just want. It's part of this larger thing that's happening, and that it's happening to him in this prominent way is really important. And I just sort of want to reemphasize that, like, you know, lots of people are struggling with this, and like you said, if people who don't know what to do, if this makes it a little bit easier for them to come out and be who they know they are and want to be, then it's a great thing. I just sort of don't want the narrative to get swallowed up by, like, you know, gossip and speculation about who else could be, and you know, should we be outing people? Because that's a tough thing, and I don't really know if I want to get into that. And it's amazing that the sports world has basically, you know, honored that in a lot of ways. You know, the sports media world.
Yeah, it is amazing. You know what?
Because we all know. I mean, it's not.
Well, I don't want to talk about what happened 2 weeks ago. I mentioned it before, but, you know, that became a sports blog story for a couple of days, and I guess that was an outing, and that whether it was an actual outing or somebody trying to hurt somebody else by outing something that wasn't true, that was kind of the way I thought this would go, and I guess, you know, my big thing with this Jason Collins thing was I'm really glad this happened on somebody's own terms.
His own
and not
terms.
as an outing.
So important.
Yeah, and in a way that he put thought into it talked about it articulately, and as you said, in a really happy way, and not in like this dark, terrible, I don't know what's going to happen next. Like he was just positive about it. And I think that was the coolest thing about it. I thought it was a really cool story. Definitely one of the most memorable ones in a while.
This is how you come out of the closet if you're a famous person. You don't like take a Golden Globe speech and twist it and turn it and not even really come out, but taunt us with your coming out. Jodie Foster. Like, you don't have an affair with somebody in your office, like, for years and years and, like, spend taxpayer money to, like, maintain the affair. Jim McGreevy. Like, you basically, if you're going to do this, create something that's positive about it, because being gay is a wonderful thing. It's a normal thing. Like, there's nothing dirty and nasty and seedy about it, or there doesn't have to be that association with it. And I think the great thing about this Jason Collins story is there's nothing. It's just a wonderful feel-good story about a guy who is just ready to say enough. This is me, and lots of people like me, and they're not going to stop liking me because I'm telling them I'm gay. It's just not going to happen. And I don't know. I just feel like that's the really wonderful thing about this, even though, as normal as it is, the big deal is that versus how we found out other people were gay, this is some Sesame Street stuff. And that's the wonderful thing.
Well, good luck to him.
Good luck.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. I enjoyed this. We knew we were going to have this podcast at some point this year, and just
we'll be having more.
we probably will be doing more. But summer movies coming up. We will look for you on Grantland. This is a nice run of crazy movies. You didn't like Pain and Gain that much, though.
Did you? You saw it? I mean,
I saw it. I thought it was visually fantastic for 2 hours. I was riveted by every minute of it. And then I walked out and I was like, wow, what just happened? And I'm still kind of confused. And it was a movie that didn't know what its identity was, but I still enjoyed watching it, if that makes sense.
No, it's a pleasure to watch. It's like, that's the problem with like at least 5 major movies right now. Like, they look great, but there's nothing there. And I feel like, Michael Bay is a good director of a particular kind of movie, and this movie is very much in his it meets up with a lot of things he's interested in, involving like physicality and bodies and masculinity and that sort of thing. But it's just the movie he just does not have the touch to make a movie like this really work. And
because you said it's a Coen Brothers movie, basically. It's not a Michael Bay movie. Yeah.
I mean, Dan Fierman started that whole thing, and our friend and my boss, it's the Coen Brothers can do this sort of thing where they know what to do with an idiot. I don't think Michael Bay really. He doesn't think these guys are idiots, and even though they say this, there's a kind of Three Stooges-ness about them. But I think Michael Bay's problem is that he actually doesn't take a moral stance on these guys the way the Coen Brothers might. And the moral stance the Coen Brothers take on stupid people is that they're stupid, and the Coen Brothers are smart, and ha 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 ha, look at these dumb idiots making us laugh. Michael Bay doesn't really. He can't really do that, because I don't think he can get far enough away from the stupidity of these guys to see how dumb they are.
Yeah.
So I think that we're just given these psychopaths, and that I think Bay actually identifies with, and that sort of causes this moral queasiness on the part of the audience, because these guys are psychos.
And another movie that's coming out soon. You love this franchise almost as much as I do, probably like 88%. Fast 6.
Yeah, you might love it a little more, but I do love it.
You love it. I'm in the top 1 percentile.
Yeah. Now, the Fast and the Furious is, I don't know how to explain all that's sort of wonderful about these movies. I mean, even the ones that aren't that good they're just doing something that movies don't do, which is to treat these outcast, outlier, fringe group. I mean, people that in the movies are just not given any prominence whatsoever. Prominence without like making a big deal about having a movie in which there's only one white guy. You know what I mean? Like the white guy is like, there's one white guy, there's a Hispanic guy, there's a lot of multiracial people, and
then there's Vin Diesel.
Yeah,
we don't know what he is. We don't know what nationality he is. I don't know. He's kind of his own human being.
He's everything, right?
He's everything. He belongs
and
to all people.
Right. And although, I mean, do you want him, Bill?
I do. I'll claim Vin Diesel. I love Vin Diesel. Let me tell you something. This is the only movie franchise that knows exactly what it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the only knows one exactly what it is.
It's a plot, and it also can go anywhere. And they can make, we can have like, I don't know what you do with the Fast and Furious combination in the title, but like Fast and Furious 28 or Too Fast, 8 Furious or something like that.
Right.
Like, by the time they get up there, like, I mean, you can just keep going with this forever. There are always going to be cars. There are always going to be countries to steal them from. There's always going to be law enforcement to break up the ring. And hopefully there's always going to be like Paul Walker and Vin Diesel and now Dwayne Johnson. And hopefully forever Michelle Rodriguez to get in some trouble. Like the plots don't even have to make any sense. It's just the dynamic that these guys have together. It's just fun. It's just really fun.
It's everything I love in a movie. I can make fun of it. I'm thoroughly enjoying it. I don't know where it's going. It's that there's things are exploding and crashing, and it's great on the big screen. And, I was talking to somebody recently about how there are no action movie heroes left. When I was growing up, at least you had Schwarzenegger and Stallone, and then Bruce Willis started the Die Hard franchise, and you just had these guys that whatever action movie they released, people are probably going to go see it. And now it's much more of a niche type of industry now, and you have like your Jason Statham type, those kind of movies, but there's no giant big budget action hero anymore. But the Fast and Furious franchise has now become that hero for some reason. It's weird as that sounds.
Right. No, I mean, it's a collective. That's where we are. Like, in the same way that there are no lead singers in bands anymore, like, it's all just people singing together, like, it's all harmony.
Yeah.
Like, our action movies are kind of the same way. Like, there's no lead singer, but, like, you have something like this. You have something like this franchise or something like the Avengers where,
superheroes,
you can't really get it done on your own, so you join this team, and the team becomes, that's the thing that we get excited about. I mean, you still have your Iron Mans, your Captain Americas, and your Hulks and that sort of thing. But, like, the thing that really, I mean, the Avengers is the one that made all the the super a lot money. We want to see these guys together. There's something about teamwork right now that's very appealing to America. Also, we've run out of action stars. We don't make men anymore. So, I mean, Dwayne Johnson is pretty much the last. That's it. Once he's too old to do this stuff, I don't know who else is going to do it. We've imported all these guys, and we didn't like them. We got these Jason Statham, Chris Hemsworth, Sam Worthington,
Mark Wahlberg.
Wahlberg?
Shooter. Come on, Shooter was his big attempt.
Wasn't even a hit. Even Wahlberg knew he shouldn't have been doing that movie.
Yeah.
I just don't think we have any. America doesn't make those anymore. And we had to outsource them, but that didn't even work. So now we have these conglomerate situations, these sort of team action movies.
I have a really important question.
Yes.
How did you just get through that last 2 minutes without making a Miami Heat, LeBron and Wade and Bosch parallel?
Because I did that already.
I know, but it was just sitting there. I was just waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting, and you just wouldn't go there.
I did write. I wrote that piece at the end of last year. I don't know. It's just, it's the super thing is it actually in sports is so obvious in a lot of ways. And I just, I was thinking the other day, what are these teams going to do? To get something, you got to, I don't know, you got to form another super duper team. And I don't know how you do that, but I'm sure somebody's working on doing the chemistry and mathematical analysis right now. But I don't know.
mean,
Those guys.
even bringing it back to our initial topic, even in football, when it was rumored that the 4 gay players were all going to come out together, even
I
that was a
know.
variation of this. Yeah.
We were
there you
like
go.
all about the gay super team.
Yeah. Super team. It's the era of the super team. Wesley Morris, thank you for your time. Thank you for your articulation of everything that happened this week. This is a really cool story by Jason Collins. Good luck to him. If on the 1% chance he's listening, good luck to him the next couple weeks. And we will talk to you later in the week on the BS Report. Thanks, Wesley.
All right. See you later.
So I get to sign off. Whoa!
Thank you for downloading the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Too much fun.
Check out more podcasts at the iTunes Music Store or at Podcenter at ESPNRadio.com.
Peace out.
Geico presents Strange Savings Stories. Astronomers detected an interstellar transmission. It stated, Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. The implications were staggering. Was the cosmos telling us we could all save hundreds on car insurance with Geico? Or did their radar merely pick up a signal from the nearby Rufus and Clyde's morning show? We may never know.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.